I'm Nick Terzo, and you are listening to The Radical. There's a saying that all you need to do to master the piano is study the legendary Ray Charles, and everything else will take care of itself. My guest this week demonstrates this advice with the release of his new record, In Plain Sight. Learning piano at a very early age, he has gone on to master the Yamaha CP70. Neal Francis joins me this week to discuss how music redirected him from studying architecture, living in a church's parish house during COVID-19, his songwriting practice, and his deep appreciation for piano pioneers of another era. Coming up, my conversation with Neal Francis. Hi, Neal.
Hey, Nick. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm really glad to meet you, and I'm happy to have this conversation today.
Likewise, man. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So you have a new record coming out in November, In Plain Sight, and this is your second album?
Correct.
Very nice. It's on ATO Records.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. It's quite an undertaking. The music, the songs are quite incredible. It's hard to explain what you're doing because at times it feels very modern. And at times I feel like I'm taken back somewhere in like the 70s or something. So
I appreciate that.
It's a really interesting ride, man.
Thank you.
So tell me, as you got to this record, I mean, Changes was your debut record. What changed for you kind of in this process this time? I mean, was there something that was better, less better? Is your writing easier?
I don't know if I would say easier, but I think I've become a better writer. I think I've become more disciplined just as a human being, as a musician, as things have solidified with the career. Granted, all our tour dates got canceled last year. And so I had to shift gears and find something to do. And luckily I had a roof over my head, courtesy of the people at St. Peter's. And so that gave me an open schedule, which was its own curse at times, because like I said, without any sort of imposed structure, I tend to fill my time with things that aren't worthwhile. So I had to just develop habits that were healthy.
Well, join the club.
Yeah.
We all have that problem. There's
Absolutely.
Too many paths in front of us.
Yeah.
That's what entails. Tell me a little bit. I'm curious about that whole thing of finding a room in a parsonage. Explain that to me a little bit.
So I was an accompanist at this church in Chicago for 3 years. And it was a great gig for me because I learned how to read music, and it was a good paycheck. They were very nice people. And, as I started touring, they were very lenient with me, providing subs, et cetera, et cetera. So I developed a great relationship with Lil Asbury, the woman who ran the church, essentially. And so I don't know, I had always noticed that the parsonage was vacant for a long period of time. And then I was in a situation where I needed a place to live in short order. And just I think I was pretty strung out at the time, just due to lack of sleep and emotional exhaustion. From a breakup I was going through, and just had the courage to ask whether I could stay. And to my surprise, they agreed. And a week later, I was moving in to the parsonage. And then a few days after that, I left on a month-long tour opening for the Black Pumas. And it was like pretty surreal to come back to this massive building. And gradually it became to feel like a home, but even looking back on it now, it's pretty surreal, the whole experience.
Right. I mean, was there any spiritual events? Was there any, was there inspiration in there? Was there energy you felt being in that parsonage?
Yeah, I think so. I had the whole facility at my disposal, and it just, being alone in those massive spaces gives you a specific sort of feeling. And I can't say whether it was external or internal, but it definitely used the space to my advantage, and I think became a better musician as a result of that time, just because I was cloistered,
That sounds right for the environment.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, what is your songwriting like? What is your process like then? During that time, the themes that came into this record, some of them probably had to do with your breakup. Maybe some of it was the isolation you were feeling in that environment. What went on in that songwriting process while there?
So I think I was writing a lot of things down in a notepad, or a series of little notebooks that were sort of jumbles of words, and was also practicing for long periods of time every day. And then I would sort of drift into an idea and record that on my phone wherever I was, and then have that to draw from when I was sitting in I gradually built out a little demo project studio in the basement of the parsonage. And that process was its own asset to the whole writing process, because I was working with recording for the first time as on the engineering side. I've never had the ability to do that before. And so I, was in a situation where my guitarist left a 8-track tape recorder, and I had a mixing board, and I just started learning to use the equipment. And so I would just create little grooves, and then those started to flesh out, and would write lyrics to them, and snowballed from there. And then I was just kind of feverishly working once I started to get a workflow.
Right. And does the piano is your kind of weapon? Yes.
For the most part, yeah. But I'd say on the demos, I was playing everything. Although usually our drummer Colin, who was also my roommate during that time, was playing drums.
Awesome. And so in that, were you able to put the bases together? Did you guys, after that writing, go into a formal studio session? Were you allowed to do that during COVID, or did you do this remotely?
No, we had, everybody was down to come in. We were somewhat convinced we contracted COVID coming back from Seattle, although we weren't able to test for it at the time. And so, there was also just a desire to work on something together, the four of us. And so we were careful enough about restricting contact outside ourselves and our family members. And then yeah, everybody came in and started rehearsing. We did several like full length concert films, which we recorded to tape and filmed in various locations in the church. And, you know, those were, and also just like huge learning experience. And like we acquired so many skills. I know a lot of people did it. It was really a blessing of the whole situation.
Mm. And it was the records produced by Sergio Rios, is that correct? And then mixed by Dave Fridman?
Yes. Sergio is the producer from Changes. He also has a fantastic band called Orgone and produces many other acts. But yeah, when he agreed to fly in from LA and work in our little studio, it was like, okay, this is happening, you know? And so I think we made those arrangements even prior to linking up with ATO formally. And then, you know, once the record was finished and we had the roughs, that's when we started poking around, and David Fridman agreed to mix the record, which was a huge break for us. And really just still pretty amazing to think that he was involved, you know, because I'm such a fan.
Well, it sounds incredible.
Thank you.
So he did his job on that end. I mean, at the same time, while you were at this like parsonage situation, I mean, did you have to provide, you know, any kind of musical services like praise music or anything to the church?
Yeah. So up until probably Easter of this year, there were still services going on via Zoom. And sometimes like last summer, when it was like this weird moment last summer, like even before the vaccines, when things started like chilling out and like we were having services in person again. And yeah, so it was like, you know, all right, guys, you know, nobody come downstairs while I'm doing this. Like, you know, we'd be up till 6 or 7 in the morning. You know, at a certain point I had the workflow. So it was as simple as me recording the songs and bouncing them to our vocalist, and he would just play them over Zoom. So I would just literally sit there. But it was just a strange addition to the whole experience. It was like, all right, I got to do this church service and then, you know, jump into recording for the day. It was like, you know, in addition to probably the 13 or 15 hour day we worked, and then like I had the church service thrown into that, like at the end of the week. It was really funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, you know, I was trying to piece together, since you're, you know, look, I just discovered you through Ken, like just recently. I was kind of surprised because it's like, how did I miss this guy on his last record? So tell, like, for my listeners, like, give me a little background on yourself. It was hard for me to even figure out kind of where you got a little mysterious. I couldn't figure out where you were raised, and I couldn't get a little background on you.
Oh, good. Well, I appreciate a little mystery then. I was born in New Jersey in 1988, and my parents moved back to Chicago when I was like 1. So Chicago's been my home my entire life. And yeah, I just had a great musical education there from both my parents, who are lovers of music, and we're always playing music in the house, and also just gradually connecting with musicians in my community, other kids who were playing, and then also like the broader Chicago scene, playing in the blues clubs, etc.
All right. Did you go to college, or did you kind of just know music was your calling?
No, I went to school for architecture at UIC.
Did you really?
Yeah. And I was politely asked to leave after a few years.
Why is that?
Well, I sort of, I took I think that like my extracurricular activities started to take priority over my studies, and I really like lost focus for most of my 20s and wasn't able to accomplish much of anything until I quit drinking in 2015, and then things started to sort of stabilize and um, move forward for me in many ways.
Some clarity.
Yeah.
That's kind of what comes with that. So that's awesome. That is awesome. So who are like some of your like musical influences growing up?
So many. I mean, like Ray Charles was an early guy I was listening to. Otis Spann, Scott Joplin. I listened to a lot of classical music. I listened, I was drawing from everything when I was a kid, just trying to, whatever I heard, I was trying to play. And I had a great teacher when I was like in middle school into high school named Erwin Helfer, who had just like a wall of records. And sometimes we would just sit there for the entire hour and he would show me piano players like, James Booker or Meade Lux Lewis or Albert Ammons. I was really into boogie woogie, and he was a great stride boogie woogie player. And he was just showing me everything, and he would make me little cassettes from his vinyl collection to take home. So that was its own sort of door opening. But yeah, I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours about music.
Well, you're playing though. It's funny. It's like bringing back the old, the piano won't stand up to your playing because how hard you hit the keys and stuff. I mean, it's like, this is definitely almost like a Jerry Lee Lewis thing, or like, Elton John playing Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. It feels like, you're definitely beating on those keys a bit. So,
well, especially live, to stand up to the, full firepower of the band behind me. I have to like really beat the keys up.
Yeah. And I mean, when you tour, cause I've had this happen with piano orientated artists. I mean, is it hard? I mean, do you need to be on like an acoustic piano, or can you what do you play on when you tour for convenience?
Well, I use a CP70 Yamaha, which I don't know if you're familiar. It's like it's a grand piano in two pieces that's sort of self-contained in their own little cases, and there's pickups on the inside instead of a soundboard, and it's an electric instrument, but it has strings and a grand piano action. So it's really like, in my opinion, the best stage piano, because it sounds enough like a piano. It has its own sound, to be sure, but you can also have an effects loop and add any sort of, I use a delay and a phaser on the piano as well. So,
and those keys are weighted to your happiness.
No, it's a real piano. It's like we're actually long overdue to like regulate the action, and it's actually like quite a difficult piano to play right now because the action's really stiff. But I don't know. I've learned to manipulate it, and now playing a real piano is like. It's a completely different experience. It's like, playing with, or it's like running with ankle weights or something,
Is that what you use to record with then too?
I recorded a lot of the record on the CP70, and then I had two other pianos in the parsonage that there was a upright that I actually learned how to play on. I don't think I've mentioned this lately, but the I don't know if you got a chance to watch the video for Can't Stop the Rain, but like that was my childhood piano that I learned to play on. And I recorded the song on that piano, and we essentially sacrificed it for that video because it got completely soaked. And now it's sitting in a garage awaiting final destruction. But
no, save it. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame eventually for you.
Oh man, I think we're gonna blow it up. So we'll
Another
see.
video.
Yeah.
That's great. And your band, I mean, you have a band around you. I mean, you've got a guy named Mike Starr who plays bass. Is that true? And Callan Boersma, is that his name, plays guitar?
Yeah.
And Colin plays drums, yeah?
Colin O'Brien. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys are my guys. They're on the record and they're on the road with me now.
It's funny to see the Mike Starr name because I signed a band called Alice in Chains, and the original bass player was Mike Starr. So I kind of had this horrific flashback when I saw Mike's name. So.
He gets that a lot. He gets that less frequently, but yeah, we know about that.
It would take an old guy like me to remember that. So
we should play the Rooster or something. Just.
To something of Jar of Flies, bring it out acoustic. So, like on your career, I mean, is there a model of an artist's career that you've seen that you kind of admired through the history that you think that model might fit what I would like to see?
Oh man, like I can't really say that there's a grand strategy. I think I'm just trying to keep myself in a headspace that's conducive to me delivering good shows, writing good songs. I definitely want the most for this project and this band. I want to be playing, big shows, and I want a sustainable career. And that's what we've always wanted from the beginning. And, I'm just so confident about this team that we've built up around us. And, it's seriously like, even from the beginning, and it's getting easier, is that I just got to show up and be prepared.
I mean, and I get a sense sometimes life challenges you. You have some demons there.
Of course.
We all do. Artists maybe a little bit more, in a way. So what are those challenges for you that you've had to kind of overcome? I mean,
initially it was drugs and alcohol that were preventing me from accomplishing really anything. And then of course, as many people on the recovery path find that like there's other things to fill the place of drugs and alcohol when you start to feel uncomfortable. If it's sex, food, relationships, codependency, social media, Netflix, basically anything to distract myself from addressing the emotions that I'm feeling. And especially, when the pandemic hit, I didn't have anything to do. It was just kind of, there was a period of just despair and depression and I don't want to say wallowing because that's like, seems like I'm ashamed of what happened, but like I was listless for a while, and it was just essential to form a routine, and I'm so grateful for that period because I carried that through to touring.
Right. Well, it's a collective malaise and challenge, I think, that we all went through as a society.
Absolutely.
And we all kind of are getting on the other side. I mean, you're on tour now. Yes, you're doing your own headlining dates.
Correct. I'm in Charleston. We've been in Charleston for a few days. We're waiting to go to Wilmington tomorrow.
Nice. And does that help you? I mean, that's like an interesting, touring certainly fills the gap.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be touring again. Absolutely.
That's awesome. And you're doing club shows right now?
Yeah.
headliners?
Yeah, we're headlining. This is our, you know, we weren't really doing headlining stuff prior to the pandemic. We were starting to, and then 2020 was supposed to be a big year in terms of touring. We had over 150 dates on the calendar, and so we're just starting to kick back up, but it seems like we're in a strong position. But yeah, man, like 10 or 10,000, we're out there kicking ass. So having fun, man, because I love playing with this band.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would love to see it live. I have a strange sense that you guys capture lightning in the bottle live. I have a sneaking suspicion.
Oh, Nick, I'd love for you to see us, man. Are you in LA?
I'm in Austin.
Oh, so. Well, we'll be there December 8th and 9th. So, you know, we'll put you on the list, buddy.
Oh, well, that's very nice of you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And, you know, back to the record, there's great songs on here. Can't Stop the Rain is fantastic, obviously. Thanks. We just spoke about that. And then you have the song Prometheus. You have very good song titles.
Thanks.
And that was more about your breakup. And that's explain our Greek reference there with Prometheus.
I just sort of, that was on my consciousness because of a movie called Lighthouse that came out with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. It's a pretty wild allegory for Prometheus myth, but like my drummer Colin and I would always joke that we were sort of living out that just forced isolation because it's about these lighthouse keepers that are stuck on an island because of a storm. And so I just wrote the song instrumentally and created a demo for it on the tape machine and wrote a completely different set of lyrics to it with my friend Chris Galbuta, who also wrote Problems. I wasn't really satisfied with what we came up with, so I just like, you know, let it stew for a couple of weeks, and then eventually one day I was working on it and just, you know, like that fire of Mount Olympus, it just came to me, man, and it's like wrote it pretty quickly.
Dude, it's fantastic. It's Thanks, definitely man. The way it's orchestrated, and I mean, it's a fantastic song.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that could be just the record itself, that one song. So
I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that one.
You should be. So you should be. And is it easy for you? I mean, it looked like there were a lot of collaborators in this group. I mean, it looks like you put together a little bit of a circus of collaboration. Is that good for you? Do you like working under those circumstances?
I love working alone. I love writing alone, but there's a few people that I've had success writing with, and I definitely want to continue to write with other songwriters. The thing that I like about that is that, you know, we leave with a demo from a songwriting session, but then I always have the ability to do my own arrangement and put my own spin on it, because for the two co-written songs on the record, Problems and Can't Stop the Rain, those sounded quite different in their demo form. And, you know, I immediately went back and started to envision it in my own pastiche. So,
and do you find, you know, we're in a world where people just release individual songs every day and every week and every month. And I mean, do you still have a joy, or do you have a reverence for kind of actually making a full album work?
I've only ever really tried that. We've got a couple in the bag that I don't know if we recorded probably, I think 12 songs and released 9. And so those 3 are sort of on the shelf, and I'm not sure whether they're ready to be released. I think I'm going to just continue to create as much as possible, and then let the office people decide how they're going to be released, you know?
Yeah, I just didn't know, because you're kind of have a reference, it seems, for like, artists that go, 70, 80 years back and stuff where, making albums were important to what they were doing.
Oh, well, of course. Yeah.
I just thought maybe that resonated with you versus a lot of young people now just want to throw out a track a month.
Yeah, a track a month. I would never hold myself to that. Unless there was a gun to my head.
That's not a fun way to create.
Yeah, dude.
You probably do that to yourself. I don't think you need somebody else doing
exactly, it. Man. I've got the gun to my own head. That's pretty dark imagery. But I do. I mean, I love good albums. They're the hardest thing to create. Is a through good album that you want to listen to without switching it up. So,
yep, it is true. Is there currently any new music you're digging by other folks that you kind of love?
New music, like new music. I just picked up. Okay, so I will say I had a tremendous, probably too luxurious trip to the record store yesterday in Charleston, the record stop, and I picked up the two new records I picked up were Daddy's Home by St. Vincent, and then I picked up Thundercat's new record, It Is What It Is. Been enjoying both of those records digitally. But I also picked up a bunch of like old disco stuff, like some Chic, some Sister Sledge, some TK Records single that I'd never heard of, a Barry White single. I've got some DJ sets coming up actually in Austin, so I was trying to just stack the deck with some dance bangers, man. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you creating your own vinyl for fans?
Yeah, I've got In Plain Sight is coming out on 3 different colorways of vinyl, and really proud of the album artwork. I've got a sticker right here. It's Raul Urias album cover. So, yeah, love vinyl.
One last question for you, since we were talking about influences and it kind of went musically. Since you were an architect student, what architects did you really kind of idealize?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. I definitely loved Frank Lloyd Wright because I grew up in Oak Park, right down the street from, I think he designed 40 buildings in Oak Park. So, from an early age, I knew that was special. I gave tours at his home and studio starting when I was 11.
Really? You were a docent?
Yeah, I was a docent at the home and studio.
Wow.
And then, of course, the Chicago School, Daniel Burnham, share a birthday with him, and Louis Sullivan. And I was really kind of in similar way to music, where I'm sort of infatuated with a certain vein of production. I really like a certain style or just a certain period of architecture in America, at least. Well,
Chicago's definitely a snow globe of fantastic architecture.
Yeah, I mean, I love that place deeply.
It's amazing. It is amazing. Well, thank you for your time. I know you're on tour, so I'm grateful that you got up early, did this with me.
Oh, Nick, it's my pleasure, man.
The record is fantastic, In Plain Sight. And if you guys do yourselves any favors, you got to listen to Neal's music. It's really incredible.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Congratulations on everything.
Thanks, man.
Travel safe and stay safe.
Yeah, man. Let's come out in Austin, man. I'll put you on the list for real.
I'd love to see you.
Sounds good.
All right, my man. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you for listening. This show originates from the podcast capital, Austin, Texas. My producer is Sean O'Neill. Visit theradicalpod.com for updates and even some merchandise. Also, please subscribe at Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I also ask that you please share episodes with your friends so we can continue to grow our community. See you all again next Friday.